Okay, welcome back everyone. Nice to see you. Welcome to everyone online as well. We're going to continue on with the second day of our course here. We're going to start with meditation like we do each morning, doing some chanting. Then I'll provide you the guidance. Then we'll ease into the meditation. There'll be that period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll start today's class, helping you to understand the Eightfold Path. This is the path for all humans to enlightenment. We're going to spend the entire morning spending time gradually walking through this, helping you to be able to understand how to train the mind to get to this enlightened mental state. Then we're going to take a lunch break, and then when we come back, I'm going to share with you breathing mindfulness meditation, talking about all the ins and outs of meditation and basically the why behind meditation. So you'll see how it plugs into the Eightfold Path and what it's doing for you to be able to train your mind and get to enlightenment. So if you'd like to join for meditation, we're going to start with the chanting. You're welcome to join along, and then afterwards I'll come in with the guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatava Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. สัมมาสัมพุทโธมะเขวะพุทธังมะเขวันตังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมะเขวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมะเขวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะเขวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจาจารณังสัมมุโนสคาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภควาติ Okay, if you'd like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Oh. Okay. All right, good morning. Nice to see all of you guys. Welcome. Welcome to everyone online as well. As I mentioned, I'm going to be sharing with you the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha, where you can learn the path to enlightenment, how to actually train the mind to get to this enlightened mental state. As we were talking yesterday, what enlightenment is where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. The mind no longer experiences any discontent feelings. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this and others is completely eliminated from the mind. And this is accomplished through training of the mind. So the Buddha shares this Eightfold Path, which is the core central teaching that he's guiding you in how to actually train the mind to accomplish that. It starts with right view, which I'm going to share with you guys as we get started. Right view is where you learn the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. This is where you can have a real breakthrough to understanding why you keep experiencing anger and annoyance and frustration and guilt and shame and fear and all these other feelings, because most people believe that it's something external that's causing these feelings. You might think that it's your friends or family members or your boss or coworkers that are causing you to be annoyed or frustrated or agitated or any of these other discontent feelings. But you can see through the Eightfold Path, specifically right view, where it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. You can have a real breakthrough, and now you can actually solve it. Because if you go around thinking that it's other people, you'll go around trying to change other people and trying to fix other people, and you'll never actually fix what the true problem is, which is inside your own mind. So I'm going to walk you through this, helping you to understand it. It's the core central teaching of the Buddha. And the way you might think about this Eightfold Path is like if you had a speaker system and you were trying to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, you would kind of tweak these 8 dials in order to get this better and better quality sound out of the speakers. Well, your mind is the same way. You have these 8 dials. You can dial this into your life closer and closer, and you'll get a better and better performing mind. Not only will you eliminate those discontent feelings, but you'll notice focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory in the mind because it's performing optimally. You've uprooted those pollutions that we talked about yesterday, the 10 fetters. So the mind will be performing optimally. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming, that you don't have bitterness and harshness and hostility in your mind anymore. So your relationships are all thriving. You'll notice that you're at ease in all your relationships. You won't even be in a bad mood any longer. So by learning this Eightfold Path and dialing it in really close, that's what's going to produce enlightenment. And this is through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. You're not going to be able to learn this and then snap your fingers and instantly implement it and everything's going to be better for you. It's going to take multiple months and years to be able to train your mind to get to enlightenment. But it's through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And with the teachings of the Buddha, it's important that you don't believe any of his teachings. There is no belief in his teachings whatsoever. The Buddha teaches you that when you're learning his teachings, to listen with eager ears and actively learn. And then as you have questions, you can ask questions. Here at the temple, if you guys could use the microphones, that way the people online will be able to hear you. And those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section. Or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and ask any and all questions that you like. So I'm going to start helping you to understand the Eightfold Path by starting with right view, the very beginning of the Eightfold Path. And I'm going to be using the words of the Buddha to help you be able to see what did he teach and what he didn't teach. And it's always important to understand to study with his original words. I know that sounds like, of course, like what else would you study with, right? But there's vast number of people in the world that consider what they're doing to be Buddhist, but they're not actually studying his original words. They're not actually studying his original teachings. And this is why we have so many misunderstandings in the world. So these are his original words on what is right view. He says, "In what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view." So here what he's doing is he's pointing to another teaching. He's pointing to what's called the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is what right view is. Underneath of this line here, I've put the top section of the Four Noble Truths so that you can build confidence that what the Buddha is doing is he's pointing to the Four Noble Truths. You can see the connection here. There's more that goes on below this in order to share the Four Noble Truths, but I just put this top section so you can build that confidence that, yeah, what the Buddha is talking about with right view is the Four Noble Truths. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths, helping you to understand these, because that's what's going to help you to do what's called establishing right view. So in order to understand the Four Noble Truths, you need to first understand the 3 universal truths. We call these truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true. But you need to know they're true. And that's why you don't believe any of these teachings. You need to learn them, examine them, investigate them, reflect on them to independently verify whether they're true or false. And then you need to practice them, integrating them into your day-to-day life. And that's where the real change is occurring. And you'll see the condition of your mind and your life improving. So I'm going to walk you through this in a way that you can learn, reflect, and practice and see the truth for yourself. So this first one here is the universal truth of impermanence. This is where the Buddha is helping you to understand about the world around you, that the world is constantly changing, that things arise, they change, and then they fade away. This is called impermanence. The Buddha describes conditioned objects as being impermanent. A conditioned object is something that arises, changes, and fades away. So everything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, Anything that comes in contact with the body or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, they are all impermanent. They're arising, they're changing, and then they're fading away. These are conditioned objects. And everything around you in the world, the material world, is all impermanent. Now, there are things called unconditioned objects. Unconditioned objects don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. So the natural laws of existence that the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago, those natural laws don't change. They're unconditioned. That's why his teachings are timeless. What he taught 2,500 years ago is just as applicable today as it was back then, because it's the same natural laws that he's describing. Now, people's memories of the teachings and the books and the resources, those have all changed because they're impermanent, because it's something that you can see, hear, smell, taste, comes in contact with the body, or something that goes through the mind. But in terms of the natural laws themselves, they don't change. They're unconditioned. And then enlightenment itself, by the time you get to enlightenment, it's an unconditioned mental state, that your mind has been purified of all the conditions that are keeping it in the unenlightened state. So by the time you get to enlightenment in this unconditioned mind, it is a permanent mental state. It's impossible for you to ever become unenlightened once you're actually enlightened. Okay, so this is impermanence. Anything you see, hear, smell, taste that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, it's all changing. It's all impermanent. Okay, so this is the intellectual learning about this universal truth, but you're not interested in believing that. You now move into reflection. You start reflecting on whether this is true or false. And what you would like to do is look around the world through your own direct experience and see if you can prove whether this is true or false. So what I suggest you do is start with something that you're familiar with, like this human body. You're very familiar with this body. You can ask yourself, is this body permanent or is it impermanent? If the body is permanent, that means it stayed the same your whole life and it's never changed. If it's impermanent, that means it's constantly changing. So what would you say? Is this body permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? Ever since the egg and sperm came together, it's constantly changing. We get taller, we get shorter, we get bigger, we get smaller, we get wrinkles and moles and pimples, we get gray hair, we start losing our hair. All this is just change, right? We get teeth, they grow in and then they fall out, and then new teeth come in, then we get cavities, right? This is constant change with the body. Our skin complexion can change, the color of our skin, the color and texture of our hair can change. This is constant change with the physical body. What about your relationships? Are they permanent or impermanent? Because if they're permanent, you've had exactly the same people in your life your entire life. If they're impermanent, you've had people coming and going in and out of your life. So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? Constantly changing. What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? It's permanent? Impermanent? Oh, okay. I didn't hear that. Okay. So yeah, it's impermanent, right? It's constantly changing, going up and down and up and down. Some people's goes up, up, up. Some people's goes down, 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 right? Just depends, right? But that's constant change. What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's sunny, it's raining. Some places it's probably sleeting and snowing at different times. We get typhoons and hurricanes and all kinds of things, tornadoes, right? All of these is all impermanent. So we could keep going on. And if that's what you need to do, do it. Because you need to go out into the world and you need to independently verify whether this is true or false. That's where you're going to have wisdom. Then you know that everything around you is constantly changing. This is a building block. All of these three are building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths when we get to it, right? So you're going to need to know that everything around you is constantly changing. Right? We had a certain number of people in the class when we first started, and then another person came, right? You can look at the wood planks on the floor. They're different lengths, different size, different texture, different colors, all right? Everything's just constantly changing around you, okay? This is an important building block that you're going to need to independently verify in order to understand the Four Noble Truths. Then we've got the second universal truth. This is called the universal truth of discontentedness. Now, some people call this suffering. If you've ever been to other places or if you've read other books about the teachings of the Buddha, you might hear people refer to this as suffering. I don't use that as a way to translate what the Buddha taught, and I'll explain to you why. But first, let me help you to understand this particular universal truth. I refer to this as discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. In the original words of the Buddha in the Pali language, the word dukkha is being used. This translates to discontentedness. What he's describing here is he's describing what the unenlightened mind experiences, which are conditioned feelings. They have pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. The pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. Those are very pleasant for the mind to experience. Then there's painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. Very painful for the mind to experience. Then there's something called neither painful nor pleasant. I've put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's very painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category. But let's just say something like shyness. It's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's kind of neither painful nor pleasant. Or a good example would be if you're on public transportation and somebody came and sat really close to you and your body was touching their body, you might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant. The mind's kind of displeased or uncomfortable in that situation. That's what the neither painful nor pleasant is. So what the Buddha is describing here is how the unenlightened mind experiences these three feelings, that it goes up and down at different times during your day and your life, right? I mean, you'll experience peace here and there, but it's only a matter of time before your mind goes up or down, right? The mind's happy and excited and elated, then it's sad and frustrated. Then you might be peaceful for a little while, but then you're annoyed and agitated. The mind's going up and down and up and down. And this is called conditioned feelings. What a conditioned feeling is that based on some condition, you're going to experience a feeling. So for example, if it's sunny outside and you get happy, that's a conditioned feeling. You have now formed a feeling based on the condition of the sun. And as long as the sun is out, the mind will experience happiness. But now, because that sun is not permanent, your feeling of happiness is not permanent either. When it rains, now the mind's frustrated or agitated or annoyed because you based your inner feelings on a condition. If you get really happy and excited when your bank account balance is up here, then when it goes down here, you'll be sad or frustrated because that's a conditioned feeling. Based on the condition of the money here, I'll be happy. But based on the condition that it went here, I'm now going to be sad. The mind's going to be sad, right? These are called conditioned feelings. So an unenlightened being might wake up in the morning and see it's sunny outside and get so happy and excited, thinking, wow, I'm going to go hiking today. There's this hiking trail I've been wanting to go on, and I'm going to call all my friends and we can go on this hiking trail. And you'd be so excited. And then you go take a shower and this person comes out and they see it's raining, and then they'll be sad and frustrated or agitated because they're not going to be able to go hiking. Where an enlightened being, they will wake up in the morning, they'll already be happy before they ever woke up because it's unconditioned happiness, it's unconditioned joy. There doesn't need to be any condition met in order for the mind to experience this happiness. And now when they see it's sunny outside, it's like, sweet, this is awesome. I'm going to go hiking today. I'm going to call my friends. It's going to be a great time. And then they go take a shower, and when they come out, it's raining. They're like, all right, well, it's raining. Maybe I'll stay home today. Maybe I'll read a book. Maybe I'll go to the mall, watch a movie, or maybe I'll invite my friends over and we can make some food and have some great conversation, right? You can maintain your happiness because your happiness wasn't dependent on the sun. So therefore, when the sun's gone, you can still maintain your happiness. This is called unconditioned happiness or unconditioned joy. The mind is beyond the pleasure and pain. It's no longer going up and down, right? So an unenlightened being is going to experience these three feelings: pleasant, painful, neither painful nor pleasant. This is where the mind is discontent, discontented, or experiencing discontentedness. Essentially, the mind is shaken up. It's unsteady. It's unstable. Have you ever been so excited or happy you like tripped and fell, or you dropped something and broke it? right? This is because the mind's shaken up. It's unsteady. It's unstable, right? So the Buddha is teaching you that this is what the unenlightened mind is experiencing. So you don't believe it, right? Because none of the teachings of the Buddha are based on belief. This is the intellectual learning. So now you move it into reflection. Because if you know your mind's unenlightened, you can ask yourself, is what you experience? Do you experience conditioned feelings based on some condition? Do you experience these feelings? Like if your boss came in and said, hey, I'm going to give you a $20,000 a year raise, would you get happy and excited with that? Or if you got laid off from your job or fired, would you be sad or frustrated? Right? You can see that the mind's having these conditioned feelings. You can look at your life over the life cycle of your entire life, and you can see every single feeling that you've ever experienced fits into one of these three categories, because the Buddha is describing what the unenlightened mind experiences. And if you have a certain feeling that you think doesn't fit into this, just let me know when we get to questions, and I will help you. Okay? So this is what's the second universal truth is discontentedness. And this is what all unenlightened beings are experiencing. Enlightened beings are beyond this. They experience unconditioned happiness, where the mind's always joyful. It's glad, it's cheerful, it's bright, it's radiant, it's uplifted, no matter what's happening in one's day-to-day life. Now, some people refer to this as suffering. You might see this if you study the teachings of the Buddha in other places, but I don't use this word because it doesn't accurately reflect what the Buddha is teaching here. The word suffering describes painful feelings really well, right? Anger, frustration, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. This is very painful for the mind to experience. So we might say that the mind is suffering, right? But if you got that $20,000 a year raise from your boss, would you say you were suffering when you got so excited from that? Or if your mom was coming to visit you and you got really excited about that, would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not, right? Or say that person comes and sits next to you in public transportation and your body is touching their body. Would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not, right? So if you use the word suffering, that's only describing 1/3 of what the Buddha is teaching here, 33%. So the mind's missing 66% of the understanding of what he's sharing. And if you're missing 66% of a teacher's teachings, how could you ever get to the ultimate goal, which is enlightenment? So the mind needs to be able to understand that these conditioned pleasant feelings are just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. Remember, the enlightened mind is beyond this. It's experiencing unconditioned happiness and joy, where it's always happy, it's always joyful. But in the unenlightened state, it's only experiencing conditional happiness, meaning all these conditions have to be met, and then you will be happy. So it's like if my mom and dad do this, if my boss does this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if the weather is this, if I have this much money in my bank account, I have this type of house, this type of car, then I will be happy, right? And all those things being true limits your happiness. It really shrinks it down because you have all these things that need to be true in order to experience the happiness. So if you continue to see the pleasant feelings as being, wow, this is wonderful, I want to chase after that excitement. Well, as soon as you're chasing after it, you're adding all these conditions that have to be met in order for you to be happy, and it shrinks your happiness. So for example, if you get so happy when you got that brand new job, 3 years later, when the company goes out of business, you'll be sad. Or if they lay you off or get fired, you'll be frustrated and agitated because the mind was allowed to experience excitement based on the condition of having this job. When that condition no longer exists, then the mind's going to experience the painful feeling. So the painful feeling is waiting for you right around the corner as soon as you allow the mind to get the conditioned pleasant feeling. So the mind needs to see conditional pleasant feelings as just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones, where you understand that the enlightened mind is beyond the conditionality of the pleasant feelings, where it can maintain its joy and its happiness all day long, no matter what's happening, because it's unconditioned, which is a much better experience, because with conditional happiness, it's very limiting. It's very narrow, where the unconditioned happiness it's full. It's where the mind's completely fulfilled and satisfied. Okay, so that's why we use the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness, because even those conditioned pleasant feelings, the mind is still shaken up and unsteady and unstable. It's part of the problem that the Buddha discovered, is that if you allow the mind to have conditioned pleasant feelings, meaning temporary pleasure, you can't get to the permanent joy. If you allow the mind to have the temporary pleasure, you're going to experience the pain at some point. It's only a matter of time that it's waiting for you, because when that condition no longer is met, that you're experiencing the pleasure from, here comes the pain, right? So you need to be able to see the pleasant feelings as just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. And these are the temporary ones, the conditioned ones. So you need to be willing to let go of the temporary pleasure in order to get to the permanent joy, the permanent happiness. Okay, so this is the second universal truth. Then we've got the third universal truth. This one's called non-self. This is actually a solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. Yesterday we were talking about the 10 fetters, the 10 individual pollutions that are in the mind. The Buddha refers to these as fetters because during his lifetime, if you were a prisoner and they're trying to keep you confined to a certain area, they would put a shackle and a chain and a ball around your ankle and keep you trapped in a field. And that's what a fetter is, the shackle, chain, and the ball. So these 10 pollutions that are in the mind that the Buddha discovered that an individual is working to uplift and eliminate out of the mind in order to experience the enlightened mental state, these 10 fetters need to be eradicated from the mind in order to experience the enlightened mental state. Those are the conditions that are causing the mind to stay in the unenlightened state, is the 10 fetters. So this particular universal truth, the universal truth of non-self, is the solution to one of the fetters. The first fetter is called personal existence view. I'll explain this to you first before I explain to you the solution here. The problem, the pollution that the Buddha discovered, is that with personal existence view, the mind will cling to the self-image or the self-identity. It'll cling to the body or the mind, the self-image or the self-identity, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And if you're being perceived that way, you'll feel great, you'll feel happy. But if you're not being perceived the way you want to be perceived or expect to be perceived, you'll be sad or angry or frustrated or some other painful feeling. So, for example, if you've ever been in a social situation and you spilled something on your clothing and you were embarrassed, this is personal existence view, because the mind wants to be perceived by others in a certain way. And as long as your clothes are clean, wow, you feel great. But as soon as that impermanence happens, where you've got some spaghetti sauce on your clothes, now you feel embarrassed. That's the mind forming a conditioned feeling based on wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, clinging to this self-image. Or say you've ever looked in the mirror and you saw a wrinkle or a mole or a pimple or a gray hair, you started losing your hair and you were shaken up by that. That's your personal existence view. Or if you've ever stood in front of the mirror trying to think about who it is that you're going to see today and what it is you want to wear, and you could only go outside the house when you had that clothing on, that's your personal existence view. You might have changed clothing multiple times before you could go outside and feel comfortable, right? This is personal existence view. I often tell this story about when I was a kid and I used gel and mousse and I used to run it through my hair and try to get every little hair in the right spot before I'd go out to school. This is my teenage years. And sometimes I did this for so long that I would miss the school bus, right? Because I didn't feel comfortable going outside until every little hair was in exactly the right spot, right? This is personal existence view. So then there's the self-identity, where the mind can cling to things like your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation, thinking that this is who you are as a person. And now when you cling to this, once again, you can only be satisfied when this is intact. So for example, if you were in a relationship as a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and you had the identity and you clung to this of I am a boyfriend or I am a girlfriend. Now when you guys were in a relationship, there was a certain level of comfort with that. But then when you guys broke up, The mind didn't feel comfortable with that because I am single. The mind doesn't identify that way. And what the mind will typically do, because it thinks the way to solve this is to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. And it thinks that's the way to solve it, because this uncomfortableness, it doesn't understand why it's occurring. It thinks that if I hurry up and get back into another relationship, that'll solve the uncomfortableness. When in reality, it's this personal existence view. It's this pollution in the mind where the mind's identifying in a certain way. Or say you have a job or occupation where you think, I am a police officer. And now when you're doing that job, you feel great. But maybe 10, 15, 20 years goes by, you retire, you get injured, maybe you get fired, and now you can't do that job anymore. Maybe you're driving a taxi and your mind's identifying with, I am a police officer. And now you feel like less of a person. Sitting at home, being retired, or driving a taxi, you don't feel whole any longer, right? This is what can happen. Or say you identify with a certain nationality, like I am American or I am French. I don't know where you're from. I'm sorry. Where? The UK. That's right. Yeah, your hair looks a little bit different. I didn't quite recognize it. Yeah. So I am a Brit, right? Or any of this I am, right? So now when the mind clings to this, it feels great when it's hearing positive things, right? If somebody's at a restaurant and you hear, all Brits are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. They have such an interesting accent. Oh, I just love being around British people. Oh, wow, you feel great. You feel wonderful. But then 2 tables over, when they're being disparaging and degrading about the nationality that your mind's holding on to, this is where your mind will be frustrated or agitated. So if you allow the mind to get those pleasant feelings when they're saying something positive, now when they're saying something over here, the mind's going to experience the painful feelings, right? So this is the problem with personal existence view, that the mind's clinging to these things, thinking that this is who you are as a person. And what the Buddha teaches you with the universal truth of non-self is that there is no self. That you can train your mind to realize non-self, where you realize that this body isn't you and this mind isn't you. And now you can train the mind to let go, so that now whatever you're experiencing, you can maintain your peace and your joy. So you're at a social situation and you spill some spaghetti sauce. Look at that. That's funny. Maybe I'll try to wipe it off in order to protect the clothing. But nonetheless, you can maintain your joy. You don't feel embarrassed or less of a person. Or if you have a certain job, you already understand that that job is not permanent. And at some point, you will end that job. Or like even in your own business, at some time, you won't be a business owner anymore. It's going to happen, right? So if you cling to this idea of this is who you are, when that changes, you will be lost and confused, feel like less of a person, feel unwhole and unwell, right? So you need to get to the point where you realize non-self. And this comes through training of the mind, where you realize this body is not you, this mind is not you. There is a body, there is a mind, it's come together for this existence, and we call that a person, but that's not you. That's not who you are. See, the challenge is that all through our life, we've acquired these labels that the mind will adopt and think that this is who you are. Even from birth, right? We've been given names, right? And now we have a certain personality and character that we assign to that. Or if we grew up in a certain country, there might be a flag or a national anthem or sports teams that people cheer for because I am American. I need to cheer for the American team, right? So now it reinforces the identity in the mind, right? So the Buddha is teaching you that there is no self. You know, sometimes people have this personal existence view so strong, they might come to a place like Thailand. They might talk to their family in their home country and say, I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to go find myself. I need to go find my true self. I'm going to go to Thailand and find myself. Right? And they'll come here, they'll spend a few months or however long, and then eventually they'll go back home and they're like, yes, I found myself. I know who I am again. Yay, I feel so great. They haven't found themselves because it doesn't exist. It's not here in Thailand. What they've done is they found new friends, they found new hobbies, they found new activities, they found a new job maybe, and they're clinging to that as who they think they are. And now they're going to go home and say, wow, I found myself. But then as soon as all that stuff changes, you're right back in the same situation. I don't know who I am anymore because all my friends changed, my hobbies changed, my jobs changed. I don't even know who I am anymore. Because if you cling to any of that stuff as who you are, it's not permanent. So it's going to lead to discontentedness. Okay, so this is a little bit of the intellectual learning on this universal truth. And sometimes people understand it when they first start learning it, other times not. And if that's the case, it's okay if you're not understanding this, because there's plenty more learning that you can do around this topic. And like I mentioned, the mind's been accumulating this personal existence view for so long, it sometimes struggles to be able to see that there is no self. But nonetheless, even with this little bit of intellectual learning, we can start reflecting to be able to independently verify that it's true. So ask yourself, during your childhood, your teenage years, your early adulthood, and now, have you seen and viewed yourself as being exactly the same through all those periods of your life, or has that been constantly changing? Changing, right? It's not been the same. What if your arm was amputated and you only had one hand and one arm? Are you less of a person? You're not less of a person, right? So intellectually, the mind understands that this body isn't you. But this is where the confusion and the misunderstanding comes in. And that's what personal existence view is. The mind has confusion and misunderstanding. That in the heat of the moment, when someone says something about this body, either positively or negatively, you'll get either pleasant feelings or painful feelings, right? But intellectually, you already understand this body's not you. But because of the pollution of the mind, it gets confused in the heat of the moment in a situation, right? And here's a third way. I would typically ask students, point to yourself. Where are you? And students who haven't heard this before will normally point and they'll say, I am here, or they'll say, I am here, right? They'll point to this body, right? And then I encourage them to look at what they're pointing to. They're pointing to a shirt. You need to ask yourself, is that who you are? That shirt you're wearing, is that you? Right? Of course, that's not you, right? So if we held it up and pointed to it and said, is that you? No, that's not me. Okay, throw it away. That's not you. Where are you? And someone might point again. What are we pointing to? Pointing to skin, right? So we've ripped off the skin and held it up. Is that you? No, that's not you. Okay, throw it away. Where are you? And then someone might point again, right? And now we're pointing to bones and muscle tissue and organs and fluid. None of those bits and pieces and parts are you. But the mind clings to this, have it confusion and misunderstanding, thinking that this is you. And you need to get to the point where ultimately you realize that this isn't you. And that's where the practice comes in, right? So there's the learning, there's the reflection, and then there's the practice, where now in your day-to-day life, you need to learn how to train the mind that this isn't you. Okay? So these are the three universal truths. Do you guys have any questions on any of these? No? For those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Okay, so we don't have any questions anywhere. So now I'm going to move on to one more building block before we talk about the Four Noble Truths. So this is where you understand craving, desire, attachment. This is the mind's expectations, the wants, the holding, grasping, clinging. This is where the mind's longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of its affection, thinking that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide lasting satisfaction. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst. The mind thinks that something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction, so it chases and chases and chases and chases. It's trying to get to those pleasant feelings. It thinks if I can just get what I want, I'm going to get those pleasant feelings. So the mind chases and chases and chases and chases and chases. If you've ever been in a mall and you saw like a brand new pair of shoes or some jewelry or a video game or a new phone or computer or something like this, and you're like, oh, I just got to have that. And the mind's longing, yearning for it. That's the craving, that you should feel the mind pulling towards this thing, pulling towards the objects of your affection. That's what the craving, desire, attachment is. So have you guys seen this in your mind before, where you're pulling towards something? Right? It could be a new job, a new house, more money, a boyfriend, girlfriend. The craving, desire, attachment isn't the object itself. It's the way that the mind's longing, yearning for it. That's why as an enlightened being, you can still have a mobile phone, you can still have a car, you can still have relationships, you can still have a house, you can still have a job, you can still have all these things. It's not the object itself. It's the way the mind is longing, yearning for the object. Okay, so that's what a craving, desire, attachment is. So now we can talk about the Four Noble Truths. This is where you learn the problem, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward in 4 simple statements that you can independently verify. This is where you can have a real breakthrough to understanding what's causing all your discontent feelings so that then you can actually eliminate them. So the first noble truth is explaining the problem. Everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. This is the problem that each individual is experiencing in the unenlightened state. Their mind's going up and down and up and down. They're happy and excited, but then they're sad and frustrated. But then they're lonely and bored. But then they feel shy and embarrassed and disappointed. But then they're feeling guilty and shameful and fearful. But then they're happy and excited again, right? The mind's going up and down like this all throughout one's life. These are conditioned feelings. This is the problem that the Buddha discovered. Now the cause of that problem is that discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. Okay, I'm going to say that a few times and give you some examples. Discontentedness, the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant, is caused by the craving, desire, attachment, the wants, the expectations, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of its affection. The mind's craving permanence when in reality everything around you is impermanent. Okay, so here's some examples for you. Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you first got together with and you were so excited. You were so happy. They were showing you affection. They were sending you text messages. They were checking in on you and seeing how you're doing, inviting you to the movies, going out to dinner, maybe having great walks in the park, having conversations that were just amazing, and maybe even having sex and intimate contact. Right? You were maybe experiencing all kinds of pleasant feelings based on this condition that you have a new person in your life who's showing you affection. And now you felt those pleasant feelings for a period of time. But then eventually you guys broke up and you guys separated. And now the mind was experiencing painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, or some other feelings like boredom or loneliness, or you might have been missing this person. This was the mind craving permanence, holding on to the relationship, wanting it to be permanent, expecting it to be permanent, when in reality it was impermanent. Oftentimes people think it's the love or their care that's causing those feelings. But love and care doesn't cause painful feelings because love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. What was causing the painful feelings is the mind was holding on and craving permanence. The mind didn't understand the universal truth of impermanence when it was experiencing these painful feelings. Right? So the mind craving this permanence, wanting this person to be in your life permanently, when the mind's confronted with this impermanence, it doesn't like it. So one of the ways to say this is the mind craves permanence, or to say that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. If you look at your life and all the situations where you're experiencing change, those were the most challenging times for you. Even when you were the one that were making those decisions, you were changing jobs, changing relationships, changing living locations. These were very challenging times for you because the mind does not like change, right? So even if you were together with this boyfriend or girlfriend for the rest of your life, the relationship's still impermanent because more likely than not, one of you are going to die first, right? And even if you died at the same time, the relationship is impermanent, but the mind's craving permanence. You can see it if somebody close to you has died, right? Like, let's just say grandma or grandpa or mom or dad or brothers or sisters or people like this around you have died. The mind will be craving permanence. So now when grandma or grandpa die, the mind will experience sorrow or grief or pain or displeasure, right? You're not a bad person if this is occurring. This is just what the unenlightened mind does, that it craves for grandma and grandpa to be permanent. When they're alive, the mind's getting what it wants. So it gets pleasant feelings. Yay, I get to go visit mom and dad and grandma and grandpa. Oh, so fun. Yay, so excited. But now when they die and you're experiencing this impermanence, the mind doesn't like that. It doesn't like that impermanence. So the mind's not getting what it wants. So it's experiencing painful feelings based on that condition. You can see the same thing if you've been to like a wedding. Maybe brothers, sisters, people around you have gotten married. You can see mom and dad or other people crying at the wedding. That's because this person's going off into the world with someone else, and that represents impermanence for them, right? The mind is holding on. Mom and dad were thinking this child is permanent, and now when they're going off into the world with someone else, brothers and sisters can be like, that's my brother, that's my sister, how dare you take them away from me, right? That's what the mind's doing. It's grieving at this wedding because this person's going off into the world with someone else, right? You can even see this if you can think back to when you got dropped off at school, whether it was grade school or college or university or something like this. Parents can be upset and crying at this time, or the children can be. That's not love, right? Because if you love your child and they're getting married or they're going off to school, it'd be like, great, you're going off to school, you're getting an education, this is wonderful, thank goodness. No, that's not what's causing the painful feelings. It's the mind holding on and craving permanence. And now when this person's going off into the world, the little child is craving mom and dad to be permanent. So now when it's going off into the world by itself, it grieves, right? Or mom and dad even grieve when the child's going off into the world by themselves. They're crying, right? So you can see this in that situation with relationships. Here's another situation that doesn't involve relationships, that people oftentimes find it easier to be able to see this. Think about if you had a brand new car. And you got this brand new car, you saved up all this money and you drove it off the parking lot, and now you parked it at a store and you went inside and you came outside and you saw a scratch on this car. Oh my goodness, you saved so much money for this car. You maybe saved for 10 years to buy this car. It's like your dream car. And now you see a scratch on the car. You might be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. It's not the scratch that's causing that. And it's not the person who scratched your car. It's the mind craving permanence, wanting this car to look a certain way permanently. And it's just not possible. We're not talking about what's wise or unwise, right? Because when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car. What we're talking about is what's causing the mind to be frustrated here. Why is it angry? Why is it disappointed? Why is it agitated or annoyed? Because it's craving permanence, and now it sees this impermanence and it doesn't like it, right? This car is impermanent. It's going to change. The paint's going to fade. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. The tires are going to need to be changed. This car is impermanent, but the mind's going to crave permanence, right? So you can see here that it's the mind itself that's causing these feelings. It's not the outside world, because that's what the mind's going to think in the unenlightened state, that it's the outside world causing these feelings. And when you don't understand the second universal or the second noble truth, and you haven't independently verified it, when those painful feelings are arising, like anger, frustration, and others, the mind's going to attribute to something external. Because of its lack of wisdom, it's going to think the problem is external. And this is where the mind becomes unskillful, because it feels those painful feelings and it thinks the way to solve it is to push people away or to push the situation away. This is why you might have pushed friends or family out of your life and you thought that was going to solve the problem. But you can see that that didn't solve the problem, because you still get annoyed, you still get frustrated, you still get discontent. If your friends and family were the cause of your discontentedness, when you push them out of your life, you would solve this problem. You would no longer have any discontentedness. But that didn't solve the problem. So pushing people away out of your life doesn't solve the problem. The second thing the mind will do when it thinks the problem is external is it'll be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intention, speech, and actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, right? Trying to fear this being into doing things your way. The mind thinks, if I can just get my cravings fulfilled and I can convince this person to do things my way, then I'll get what I want and I'll be happy, right? But that doesn't work either, because there's 8 billion people in the world and you're damaging your relationships when you're doing this, right? And then the third thing that you'll tend to do is put your expectations on people and try to control them and force them into doing things your way. And once again, the mind's trying to get its cravings fulfilled. And now this person feels pressured in the relationship and they choose to leave out of the relationship, right? So as long as the mind's being unskillful, or it's pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, and putting expectations on people, you're going to keep experiencing broken relationship after broken relationship after broken relationship, because it's only a matter of time before someone does something differently than you. You're the only person in the world that does things your way, right? And if you can only be happy when people do things your way, you're the only person you can hang out with, because everybody else is doing things differently than you, because not everyone's going to do things your way. So it's only a matter of time before someone does something differently than you. So it's only a matter of time, if you don't understand the second noble truth, that you push people away, you're bitter, harsh, and hostile, or you put your expectations on people. And people are probably doing this to you too in your life. You might see that people are doing this kind of thing to you because they just don't understand the second noble truth. So this is the intellectual learning about this, but now you don't believe it, right? Don't believe anything. You need to reflect on it to see if it's true. And this is where I invite you to think about a recent time that you've been angry or frustrated or irritated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. Might have been this morning, yesterday, or last week. Look at that situation through these fresh eyes. At that time, you might have been trying to blame somebody else, because that's what the mind typically will do. Try to blame someone else. But look at it with fresh eyes. What was it that your mind wanted? What were you longing, yearning for? And if you would have got it, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted and what you expected, what the mind was longing, yearning for, there was some painful feeling that came in the mind. You should be able to see this clearly for yourself. And if you don't, let me know. I will help you. I've had plenty of students over the years contact me to try to get help with these kinds of things, right? I had this one student one time call me. They said, David, I need to talk to you. I went to work the other day and my house looked beautiful. And I was gone for like 8 hours, 10 hours. And when I came home, my wife had this craft project all over the house. And I walked in and I got frustrated. How did my mind cause my frustration? I wasn't even there. She's the one who messed up the house. Didn't she cause me to be frustrated? No, it's your own mind. Your mind's craving permanence, right? The mind had a certain expectation of how this house was supposed to look. And it looked that way when you went to work. And then when you came home, it didn't look that way anymore. And the mind was craving this permanence. And now it looked different, right? All that you experienced was impermanence. That's all that you experienced was impermanence. But the mind was craving permanence. And the house can't look like that permanently. It's not possible. But as long as your mind's craving that permanence, you will experience frustration. So this craft project that your wife has all over the house, that's not permanent either. She's going to put it away. And maybe you even help her to put it away, right? But as long as your mind's craving permanence, when you see some kind of change, you will be upset. You will be frustrated, right? So you should be able to see, and if you can't, let me know that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And this is the breakthrough that you can have, because we walk around with this belief that it's other people causing us to be angry and frustrated. We feel justified in that anger and frustration. You might feel like this person deserves it because they caused me to be angry, right? I'm sure you've been in knockdown, drag-out fights where you've been trying to convince people to stop doing what they are doing because it was making you angry. And if they kept doing that thing, you were going to keep getting angry. But you can look back over the course of your life, every single time you've ever been angry or frustrated or sad or any other discontent feeling, it's the mind craving permanence, right? You can think back to when you were a child. Your parents gave you chocolate and ice cream. Maybe 2 or 3 times you were so happy. But then at some point they said, no, you can't have chocolate and ice cream. And you were angry because the mind didn't get what it wanted, right? It was longing, yearning for that. It was craving for that flavor on the tongue to be permanent, when in reality it's not permanent. Okay, so the second noble truth is part of your awakening. That's what it means to awaken, is to cultivate wisdom. And the very first thing you need to cultivate wisdom about is how your mind is causing its own discontent feelings. And when you come to understand that, it's actually very empowering, because if it's your mind that's causing these feelings, that means you can eliminate them. If it was somebody else who was causing your feelings, you could never eliminate them, because there's 8 billion people in the world, and you can't teach 8 billion people to do things your way. But you can train your mind. You can train one mind, right? So this is where it becomes very empowering. So if your mind's causing your discontentedness because of craving, desire, attachment, the third noble truth is explaining the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. If you eliminate the cause, then you'll eliminate the effect, right? So if you've independently verified that craving, desire, attachment is the cause, then just eliminate that and you will eliminate the discontent feelings, right? So you need to convert the mind. You need to transform the mind, essentially rewire the mind to no longer form conditioned feelings, craving this permanence. And the way to do that is the fourth noble truth. The path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. This is the complete perfect plan that's going to train your mind to let go. Because this third noble truth, you can verify it, right? If you think back to the boyfriend or girlfriend that you were with, that initially you were angry or frustrated or lonely or bored or missing this person, at some point your mind let go and you gained your peace. You regained your joy, right? You're like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, okay, so be it. And you let go. Or if she wants to live in a different part of the world, okay, so be it. Let her live, let it go, right? And your mind let go, and that's where your peace and your joy came back, right? So the mind doesn't know how to let go. So that's what the Eightfold Path is going to teach your mind how to do. It's the complete perfect plan that's guiding you and how to accomplish this. And it's starting with right view. Right view is the foundation, where you have the right view of what's truly causing these feelings. The right view is to understand it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing these feelings. It's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Wrong view would be to blame other people. Whenever the mind's blaming somebody else for its feelings, that's wrong view. So what I encourage you to do now and forever, for the rest of this life, is whenever you're discontent, pause and look inward and see, what am I craving here? What am I longing, yearning for? Right? That's what you would like to be able to do in order to be able to establish right view and be able to see this very clearly. Because if you go around blaming other people for what you're experiencing, you'll never solve this. You'll be stressed and having anxiety and guilt and shame and fear and all these other feelings for the rest of your life. So establishing right view and practicing right view is to be able to look inward and be introspective and look at what is your mind longing, yearning for. And that's where you can essentially eliminate these cravings, desires, attachments, and get liberated and get free, where the mind can now be completely peaceful and joyful, right? So then after you have right view established, and you need to work on that and to build that, that's the foundation, you then move into right intention. This won't take me as long to teach it to you, but actually let me ask you, do you guys have any questions on right view? Both of you guys have learned it with me before. Okay, let me see if there's anyone online that has questions. Okay, I don't see any questions online. Okay, so now we go to right intention. This is the second factor of the Eightfold Path. These won't take as long to teach. That first one takes a while to teach because you really need to take your time with it. So the Buddha teaches in what, monks, is right intention. The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right intention. Okay, so there's three things here: renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. Some people call this right thinking or right thought, right? Because that's what you're doing, is you're developing the thinking or the thought or the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. What renunciation is you're willing to let go and give up your false ideas, your false beliefs, your false opinions, and your unwholesomeness. There's a certain amount of unwholesomeness that each unenlightened being has. And there's also a certain amount of false beliefs, false ideas, and false opinions that you have. One of the very first false beliefs and false opinions that you need to get rid of is you need to get rid of the belief that someone else is causing you to be angry or frustrated. As long as you hold on to that, you'll never get to enlightenment. So in order to get to enlightenment, you need to practice the intention of renunciation where you're willing to let this go. But you're not bringing in new beliefs in order to get rid of your old beliefs. That's not what you're doing. You're bringing in wisdom, right? You're trying to independently verify the truth through investigation, reflection, and practice. And now when you see this wisdom, oh my goodness, I've been believing all along that it's other people causing me to be angry, and that's not true. I need to be willing to let that go and bring in this wisdom and be able to see the truth, right? And that's what you need to practice, the intention of renunciation, where you have an open mind to bringing in this new wisdom, right? And let go of your unwholesomeness, because there's a certain amount of unwholesome things that you're doing in terms of your moral conduct. So you're going to need to be willing to let that stuff go. If you keep holding on to that stuff, it's just going to produce unwholesome results for you. Then you need to have the intention of non-ill will or harmlessness, and then harmlessness. So non-ill will, what ill will is animosity, bitterness, the anger, hatred, and all those lesser versions like frustration, agitation, annoyance, and everything else. Even the slightest dislike, right? Sometimes when people dislike someone, they think it's coming from that person. It's not. It's coming from your own mind. There are certain expectations that the mind has. And if someone meets your expectations, you like them. But if they don't meet your expectations, you dislike them, right? Because the mind's craving this permanence. I want everybody to fit into this mold and conform to what I think is right about the world. And when they meet my expectations, I like them. But when they don't meet my expectations, I don't like them. Because the mind doesn't understand impermanence, and not everyone's going to do things your way, right? So in order to practice the intention of non-ill will, you need to get rid of your anger, your hatred, your ill will, your bitterness and harshness and hostility. What non-ill will is goodwill. That's what that is. That's a double negative. Non-ill will is goodwill. So practice the intention of goodwill towards all beings, where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. Active goodwill towards all beings. Then you need the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. Because as long as you cause harm to others, this harm is going to come back to you. This is the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result. Any kind of harm that you put out, it's just going to keep coming back to you. So these are the three right intentions: the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. Okay, so just a little summary. The right view is the Four Noble Truths. Essentially, accepting responsibility for your own feelings, your intentions, your speech, and your actions. At the heart of this, it's understanding that it's your own mind that's causing your discontent feelings, that it's craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning that's causing this. Then there's right intention, which is practicing the intention of renunciation, the willingness to let go of your false beliefs, false opinions, false views, false ideas, but you're bringing in wisdom to get rid of that stuff. Right? So you can see the truth about the world around you. Then you practice the intention or the thinking or the thought of goodwill or loving kindness, non-ill will. And then you practice the intention or the thinking or the thought of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. So do you guys have any questions on this first section of right view and right intention? This is the wisdom section. This is the foundation that everything else is built upon. No questions? Okay. So what I typically do is take a nice little break here. It's about 10:20. So let's take a 20-minute break, which will take us to 10:40. Give you guys a chance to take a break, get some snacks, use the restroom, and all that good stuff. So those of you guys online, we're going to be back in about 20 minutes. So enjoy your break, and we'll see you afterwards. Okay? Was it 10:30? Oh, sorry. Yeah, we'll do 10:50. Sorry, I didn't see that. My clock. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, welcome back to you guys. We're going to continue on with our journey here through the Eightfold Path, because once you understand the foundation of the Eightfold Path, that the mind itself is causing these discontent feelings, that's right view, understanding that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, and you need to have the intention of improving all of that through renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. Then the Buddha teaches you moral conduct, because like I was mentioning earlier, that when we think that it's other people that are causing us to be angry, we can feel justified in our harsh and bitter conduct, right? Our animosity towards others, our resentment towards others, because we think those painful feelings are being caused from something external. But once you understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, then you need to look at your moral conduct and improve that, because as long as you're making unwise decisions in the way that you interact with people through your speech, your actions, and your livelihood, it's going to be causing harm, and now this harm comes back to you. So building on these right intentions of harmlessness, where you're disinterested in causing harm to others, the Buddha teaches you right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Whenever you're learning moral conduct from the teachings of the Buddha, it's important to help you understand that what he's teaching you is the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result. This is the main natural law that the Buddha is helping you to awaken to be able to see certain causes or actions that are going to lead to certain effects or certain results, because each thing that you experience in life is a result of the decisions that you're making. And if you don't understand the wisdom behind this natural law of cause and effect, then you'll go out into the world and making unwise decisions, and when you're experiencing unwholesome things coming back to you, you'll tend to blame it on other people. So oftentimes people think that what they experience in life is good luck or bad luck or destiny or fate, or maybe God or some entity called the universe is controlling what you experience, or people will blame other people for the things that they're experiencing. But what you come to understand through these teachings, and you can independently verify, is that it's your decisions that are leading to any particular results. And if there's anything that you don't particularly care for that's going on in your life, cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you'll experience different results. But if it's good luck or bad luck or destiny or fate or God or some entity called the universe, or if it's other people that are causing you to experience what it is that you're experiencing, you can't change anything about your life. You're stuck, because you can't change any of those things. But when you come to understand this natural law, you understand that it's your life, your decisions, and your results. This natural law of karma, it means cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. It's nothing mystical or magical. It's not punishments or rewards. It's not about who's to blame or who's at fault. Sometimes people talk about it like a bank account that you're making deposits into and you're making withdrawals out of. None of that is true. It's literally a sequence of events, essentially. The way you can think about it is there's a certain decision that's made, and then based on that, there's going to be a certain effect, right? So every single thing you choose to do, there's going to produce a certain effect. So the Buddha isn't teaching you rules or commandments. He's not trying to convince you to do anything. He's just helping you to be able to see this natural law very clearly for yourself. That if you're interested in getting to this peace and joyful mental state, if you're going around the world making unwise decisions about your moral conduct, you're going to keep putting out harm, and harm is going to keep coming back to you. How can you experience peace and joy if you keep putting out harm, and harm just keeps coming back to you over and over and over again? So by you cleaning up your moral conduct, you'll be able to make wise decisions about how you interact with the people in the world, and you'll see more and more wholesome things are occurring for you, or wholesome karma. So we're going to talk more about the natural law of karma on Thursday morning, but I just kind of give you a heads up here that what the Buddha is teaching you is this natural law, and helping you to see that as it relates to speech, actions, and livelihood. Okay, so now we can go in and talk about each one of these individually. So here's the words of the Buddha on right speech. He says, "In what, monks, is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech." So there's 4 types of speech here that he's showing you is going to produce wholesome results if you choose to speak in this way. Whereas if you refrain from lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech, it's going to produce wholesome results for you. Because the reason why is, remember, the Eightfold Path is to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection. And whenever you are making decisions through craving, which is essentially your own selfish desires, it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. So when someone's lying, we all did that when we were growing up as a kid, right? There's something we wanted. And if we told the truth, we thought we weren't going to get what we wanted. So we lied, right? There was some craving, there was some longing, yearning there. So speaking the truth, your mind can be at ease, because when you're out there lying, if you've done a lot of lying, you know it's very hard to keep all that straight. And your mind's constantly having to figure out what you said to one person versus another. So how can you get to peace and joy if your mind's obsessively trying to figure out what you said to one person versus another? Also, it's going to damage your personal and professional relationships. So the Buddha is showing you wise decision making in terms of the way you interact with people is to tell the truth. And now your mind can be at ease and you can have very successful personal and professional relationships. Then he teaches you to eliminate slander, because this is also based in craving, desire, attachment. This is like gossip. This is damaging someone else's reputation. Essentially what the mind is thinking is that when you go into a room, the mind's like, if I put out everybody else's candle, my candle will shine brighter. But no, we're in a dark room. We need everybody's candle to be shining, right? So the mind has a craving to look good in front of other people, and it thinks the way to do that is to diminish other people and to make them look bad, right? And this isn't going to produce beneficial results for you. When you go out into the world and you're gossiping and slandering, at the height of this, you can actually be murdered or killed. This is why investigative reporters that go in the news, they investigated someone, they report this, and oftentimes they end up dead, right? We're not explaining to you the way the world should be. That's not what the Buddha is teaching you. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And the way the world is that if you go out in the world and you're causing harm through your speech, damaging people's reputation, they're going to want to cause harm to you, right? So at the height of this, you can get murdered or get killed. At the very least, when your back's turned from those people that you were gossiping and slandering with, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you. If you've ever been involved in this kind of thing, you've seen this to be true, that when you left and walked away, now all of a sudden they're gossiping and slandering about you. So if you put out gossip and slander, this is what's going to come back to you. So you would like to get to the point where you're not doing that. Then there's harsh speech. Harsh speech is your tone, your tempo, your word choice. Whenever you're speaking harshly, there's some craving, there's a desire, there's a longing, a yearning. And the mind thinks, if I'm bitter and harsh and hostile with this person, I'll get what I want, right? So that's why the mind's being bitter, harsh, and hostile. So you're going to need to pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. When you pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice, and you make it gentle, this is going to produce wholesome results for you. But when you're bitter and harsh and hostile with animosity towards others, this is not going to produce beneficial results for you. So the Buddha is teaching you to refrain from that. Now, you're going to find that harder with people that you have attachment to, your parents, your life partner, your children, right? People that you have craving, desire, attachment with. In those situations, you'll find this the hardest to speak gentle to them. But that's because you have craving. And the Buddha is teaching you how to knock that down and eliminate it by speaking gently in all these situations. That's what's going to help you to eliminate your anger, your hatred, and your bitterness and hostility, is getting rid of the craving, desire, attachment. So your relationships that you have the deepest attachment in, you'll find this to be the most challenging. Right? And then there's frivolous speech. This is also based in craving, desire, attachment. What this is like, if you've ever been around somebody, or if you've ever been this person, where it's just like yada 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 yada. It's like no purpose, no benefit behind the speech. It's just like ongoing rattling and chatting. Right? There's like no purposeful speech. It's just that this person has a craving to talk. They're not even in a conversation with you. They're just broadcasting to you. They might just talk for 15, 20, 30 minutes straight without even an opportunity for you to say anything, right? So that's based in craving, desire, attachment. And if you do this with people around you, they'll tune you out. They won't be interested in having conversations with you, right? So the Buddha is teaching you to eliminate this, because all four of these are based in craving, desire, attachment. So once you get those well underway and you're practicing those well, there's a deeper teaching, because the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching that other things plug into. There's this teaching called the 5 Factors of Well-Spoken Speech that plugs into the Eightfold Path and gives you more details about why speech and how to speak in a way that is harmless. So the Buddha teaches you to speak at the proper time. What you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. What it means to speak at the proper time is that you don't interrupt people, right? If you're interrupting people, there's a craving there. There's a longing, a yearning. You can't even wait until this person's done talking. You want to jump in there and talk right away, right? So you don't like it when people interrupt you. So you would like to just wait your turn, and then your mind can not have that craving, desire, attachment to talk. The second aspect of speaking the proper time is to make sure your mind is the proper time to talk. If you're angry, if you're frustrated, if you're agitated or annoyed, it's not the proper time for you to talk, because the only thing that's going to come out is the bitterness and harshness and hostility, and you're going to damage your relationship. So you would like to make sure your mind's calm. Then the third aspect of the proper time is making sure the person you're speaking to, that their mind is calm, right? Because if they're angry and frustrated and agitated or annoyed, it's not the proper time to talk, and you're not going to be able to have a decent conversation here. So those are the 3 aspects of speaking the proper time. Then there's speaking the truth. This is covered up here in the right speech as refraining from lying, because you would like to speak truthful. Not only avoiding deliberate lies, but making sure that whatever you say is truthful. Like if you went out into the world spreading unfounded conspiracy theories, right? This is not going to go well for you. You're just speculating about the world. You don't really have any true understanding of what's going on. You're just spreading conspiracy theories in the world. People are going to discover that those things aren't true. And then people are going to look at you in a way through your personal and professional relationships where you really struggle. So you're not only interested in avoiding deliberate lies, but making sure that whenever you speak, that it's the truth, right? Then speaking gently is the same thing up here, that you pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. And if you speak other languages besides English, you're going to need to pay attention to all of these things in those languages too, right? In the English language, we used to say things like thank you and please and sorry and you're welcome and sir and ma'am and things like this. But oftentimes people have faded away on those kinds of things, where if you're going to experience this beneficial results of speaking wisely, you're going to need to bring those things into your speech for the English language, for example. But there's other languages in the world too. Like in the Thai language, it's very clear when someone's talking polite and respectful right from the very beginning. You can tell, because we have all these different words that show politeness and respect. That's where, like when you say sawadi ka as a female, right? That ka shows that you're being polite and respectful. Whereas if you just walked in like sawadi, right? Like, whoa, what's going on here? So we have all these different words like ka or kap or na kap or kap home, right? We have all these different ways of sharing very endearing speech when we talk with other people. So whatever languages you speak, you're going to need to figure out, how can I speak gentle here? Paying attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. And that's going to really help you in your relationships. Then you would like to speak beneficially. Speaking beneficially is more about the method of how you communicate versus the topics, right? It's not like there's a list of approved topics somewhere that says these are the things you can talk about. It's more about the method of how you talk. You like to be clear and concise and precise in the way that you speak. Whereas if you're rambling, chit-chat, like frivolous speech, and someone has to work really hard to understand what it is you're communicating, people aren't going to be interested in talking with you. And you're going to find that you're less and less influential in your community around you, both personally and professionally. So speaking beneficially is more about being purposeful in the way that you speak, having clear, concise speech. And then the Buddha teaches you essentially to wrap all of this in a mind of loving kindness. Loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill towards others. The opposite of this would be inner hate. If you were to speak with inner hate, it's not going to produce beneficial results for you. So you would like to speak with a mind of loving kindness. So speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. And what you're doing here is if you speak this way for an extended period of time, you're establishing what we call in Thai, barami. This is a Thai word, barami. What it means is the one who people listen to. In each individual village, there tends to be certain elders that everybody knows, like those people are successful. If you need help, go talk to them. They will help you to be successful, right? And when I say successful, I don't mean monetarily, right? Because anybody can go outside and make a bunch of money. What I'm talking about success is that they have harmonious relationships. That's what it means to be successful, is to have harmonious relationships with the people around you. So these people in the Thai village, they have barami. They're the one who people listen to. And when people need help, they go and talk to the elders, and now the elders give those people help, right? So if you're interested in establishing barami, where you can be the one who people listen to, where you can be influential in your personal and professional life, you're going to need to learn how to speak with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, because these are universal laws. These are the natural laws, right? It's not like they only work in Thailand. It's everywhere that these natural laws are affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. So you can establish barami, the one who people listen to. But it's not going to be 1 week or 1 month, right? You're going to need to speak like this for multiple months and years. So more and more people will be able to associate with you as someone who speaks wisely, someone who speaks in a way that is harmless, and that you're speaking with this barami, the one who people listen to, that you're not causing harm through your speech, right? So you can actually go through and independently verify these, right? Because remember, you're not interested in believing anything whatsoever. So you can look at these 5 factors of well-spoken speech and look at conversations that haven't gone well for you, right? You've had those before. Look at those conversations. Were you speaking at the proper time? Was it true? Was it gentle? Was it beneficial? And was it with a mind of loving kindness? Even if you missed one of these factors, there's the potential that that conversation didn't go well, right? You and or the other person weren't using these 5 factors, and that's why the conversation didn't go well. You can see that very clearly. But then you can look at the other side of this too, to independently verify it. Look at conversations that have gone well, because you've had plenty of conversations that have gone well. Look at this. You were practicing all of these 5 factors without even realizing it, because these natural laws affect you whether you're aware of it or not, right? So since you can see and independently verify through your reflection that, yes, this is true, now you start practicing it more and more. You dial this in closer and closer in your life, where you're practicing all the 5 factors of well-spoken speech consciously. And you're going to need to work at this. You can't go out of here and snap your fingers and instantly start practicing this with every single person in your life. Because remember, the people where you have craving, desire, attachment in your relationship, that'll be the most challenging, right? With people here, you can use the 5 factors all day long because you're not attached. You don't have any craving to the people here, attachment in these relationships. So you can use these all day long, right? But with your family, with your friends that are really close to you, with your life partner and your children, that's where it becomes really difficult. So you're going to need to do the work to gradually bring these into your life closer and closer. And that's what's going to improve your relationships. Okay, so these are the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, which are essentially a deeper level teaching than this here. This is to help you get started, but then you dive deeper into it and start practicing this, dialing it in closer and closer. Between now and the time that you're actually getting to the 5 factors of well-spoken speech up and running in your life, you're going to need to memorize this in order to practice it. But in the next few months, you're not going to always be able to remember it. So one of the things you can do is, in this book, I talk about polite, kind, friendly, and respectful speech. In this book, in chapter 5, that's chapter 4 and 5 is the Eightfold Path. I go in detail about the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, explaining each one of them in detail. But then I also share how you might decide to use this, where you speak polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. You still need to know the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. That's the natural law. That's what's going to get you to enlightenment. But between now and the time where you really understand the 5 factors and you're practicing them closely, you might be in a situation where you can't remember the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. But if you can remember to speak polite, kind, friendly, or respectful. This will help you. So if you move in that direction, that's what you would ultimately like to be able to do. Okay? Then there's right action. Here's what the Buddha says. In what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. So here he's talking about 3 impactful bodily actions that would cause harm. And if you cause harm through your bodily actions, that harm is going to come back to you. Again, it's not rules or commandments. He's not trying to convince you of anything. He's just showing you the natural law. Like, hey, if you do these things, it's going to produce unwholesome results. Tomorrow, I'm going to share the 5 precepts, which are going to expand this for you and help you to understand this more. Because right here, he's just giving you kind of like a summarized version, but he goes into each one of these in detail in the 5 precepts. Like this one, refraining from sexual misconduct. Okay, well, what is that? Right? Who determines what that is? Well, the Buddha is going to share with you how you can cause harm through your sex. This is like having sex with minors, sex without consent, sex outside of relationships, sex with people who are already in a relationship, things like this is going to cause harm. So the Buddha goes into detail and explains this. I usually like to give a heads up here to help people understand that sexual misconduct doesn't involve same-gender relationships. The Buddha understood this 2,500 years ago, because if you understand the natural law, it's that whenever you're causing harm, harm is going to come back to you. In 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults that are choosing to have sex with each other, they're not causing harm to anyone, right? If it's a male and a female, or 2 males or 2 females, they're not causing harm to anyone. The Buddha understood this 2,500 years ago. So when you see his teachings on sexual misconduct, he doesn't mention same-gender relationships because it's not causing any harm. And he was aware of it 2,500 years ago because it was going on during his lifetime too. You can see it in some of his teachings. He mentions it, but he doesn't teach any teachings about it. He just observes that this is something that's happening, right? Because if you understand the universal truth of impermanence, there's never been a time where every male had sex with a female and every female had sex with a male. If every single person had sex with the opposite gender, that would be permanence. But we understand the universal truth of impermanence, and not everyone's going to be interested to have sex with the opposite gender, right? So you'll see with sexual misconduct that the Buddha doesn't include same-gender relationships, and we'll talk about that more tomorrow. So the Buddha is not giving an exhaustive list here of every single bodily action that could cause harm, but if you understand this particular factor of the Eightfold Path, then you can figure these out. He's just giving you the top 3 that are very impactful, right? Notice he doesn't say it would be unwise to walk up to someone and punch them in the face. Right? He's not going to say that because you should be able to figure that out. That if you punch someone in the face, they're probably going to pull out a knife or a gun. They're probably going to punch you back. Their friends or their family is going to attack you. Something's going to happen, right? You're going to experience unwholesome results. He doesn't say it would be unwise to drag your suitcase through the aisle of a plane and run over people's feet and bump into their knees. Right? Because airplanes didn't even exist during his lifetime. So he couldn't have given you an exhaustive list here, but you can figure those out, right? You can figure out to make sure that as you're moving about the world with this body, that you're not causing any harm to other beings. Because anytime you put out harm, harm will come back to you. So this is right action. And the Buddha does teach about things like substances that cause heedlessness, which we'll talk about tomorrow. He talks about gambling and things like this. So there's other ones that he points out, but he never gives you an exhaustive list. It would be impossible for him to do that. Okay? Then there's right livelihood. He shares, in what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, the noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood. So here he just says something very general and very broad, because in his teachings, deeper, he explains what right livelihood is. First, let's just talk about what a livelihood is. What a livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life, right? Because you need to earn an income in order to be able to sustain your life. And if you're sustaining your life off of causing harm to others, this harm is going to come back to you. So the Buddha is going to teach you how to not cause harm in the way that you sustain your life. So here he says these 5 trades are ones that are going to cause harm. having business and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons, because all 5 of those things are going to cause harm to other living beings. And if you're sustaining your life off of causing harm to others, then harm is going to come back to you. So remember, nothing here is about belief. You need to cultivate wisdom to see the truth for yourself. So I'll show you how to do that with something like this. So let's just take this one, substances that cause heedlessness. Let's say I was standing on the street corner selling cocaine, crystal methamphetamine, and heroin into the community, right? And now these people are getting addicted to these substances, and they're going out and stealing and robbing and selling their body in order to get money and bring it to me. Right? And now I'm getting this money, and this is how I'm sustaining my life. Well, standing on the street corner selling those things, I'm very likely to get beat up, to get robbed, to get murdered, to get arrested. I can get addicted to these substances myself. This is all the results of my unwise decision, right? I'm causing this harm into the community, and now harm's coming to me. Getting beat up, robbed, murdered, arrested, all these kinds of things, right? But this is the natural law, because what I just described is selling heroin, crystal methamphetamine, and things like that. Those are illicit drugs. And in most places in the world, it's illegal to sell illicit drugs on the corner. But the Buddha's not just talking about illicit drugs. This is all substances that cause heedlessness, right? So if you understand the human laws, you won't actually get to enlightenment through the human laws, because the human laws, the laws of society, they're created by human beings. They're imperfect. But this is a natural law. It functions at a much higher level. So if you understand the natural law, well, your government, because of the human law, might say, yeah, you can work at that liquor store. You can be a cashier at that liquor store, or you can work as a bartender at that bar. We're not going to arrest you. But if you understand the natural law of karma, you will come to understand that that's unwise, because those are the places that people get robbed and beat up and murdered. Things like this are all occurring because people are coming in there high on certain substances, and now they're trying to rob and try to get money from that particular business. This is the karma of choosing that particular livelihood. At the very least, this individual who's working as a bartender or a cashier at a liquor store, they're going to have to deal with intoxicated people from time to time. And how can you ever get to a peaceful and joyful life and a peaceful and joyful mind if you're having to deal with intoxicated people all the time, right? So this is a natural law. It's functioning at a much higher level than the human law. So you need to look beyond the human laws of the government. So you could go through each one of these and see for yourself that, yeah, it's causing harm, and that there would be harm that would come to you as a result. But then the Buddha goes further. He teaches you how to perform a livelihood in a way that doesn't cause harm, because what he's helping you to do is get to a livelihood that you feel very enthused and motivated and have ambition to perform each day. Because if you're dragging yourself to work each day and you despise the type of work that you do, you're not going to get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life. So he's teaching you to eliminate these things. Things like scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. What scheming is like corruption, right? So let's just say I was a politician, like I'm a mayor of a town. I'm not causing any harm. It's not one of those 5 livelihoods of business and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons. But if I was scheming as the mayor of a town, if I was corrupt, about 10 years, 15 years into my career, people find out, they're not going to be interested in reelecting me, right? So I'm going to be out of a job, right? So the Buddha is teaching you not to have corruption in the work that you're doing. He's teaching you to eliminate flattery. What flattery is where you're having insincere comments just to get people to do business with you. If you've ever been into a store and you walked into the store and they're like, oh, that is the most beautiful shirt that I've ever seen. It really brings out the colors of your eyes. You have such an amazing shape on your face. Hey, you know, I have these great earrings that would go really great with that shirt. Come over here. I'd like to show them to you. Right? They're just trying to flatter you in order to get you to buy something. And if you have ever experienced that, you're probably like, ugh, I don't even want to go into this store. I just want to turn around and leave, right? So people aren't going to be interested in doing business with you if you're doing this flattery. What hinting is where you're not clear and concise about the work that you're doing and the way you communicate it. So if all of us were on a project team and we needed to go into the boss's office and brief them on what it is that we're doing, we'd like to be clear and concise and precise. We don't want to just ramble around. We would like to be clear and concise about the work that we're doing and communicate that well. What belittling is where you're degrading and diminishing your customers, your business partners, your competition, people like this, anybody associated with your business, right? You're not interested in degrading and diminishing other people. Sometimes people think the way to do good in business is to belittle your business the competition, right? And that's going to make me look better. But in fact, it's actually making you look bad, and people aren't going to be interested in doing business with you. So if somebody asks you about your competition, just say, I'm not really sure what they do, but here's what I can do for you. I can do this, right? Just focus on that. You don't need to talk bad about your competition. So you'd like to eliminate any degrading, diminishing, belittling speech about your customers, your business partners, your coworkers, your competition, any of these kinds of individuals, right? Then what pursuing gain with gain is, this is where you don't really care about the product or service that you're involved in. You're just doing it for the money. That's all you care about, right? You're just showing up for the paycheck, right? If you've ever had that kind of job, you probably felt very dull, very unmotivated, like you're dragging yourself to work each day. Because you might take a job just for the money at first. It's like, wow, that's a big fat paycheck. I'm going to take that job. But now, after 3 months or 6 months, that wears off. And now you feel dull and lethargic and unmotivated going to work. So what the Buddha is teaching you to do is get to the point where you have a right livelihood, where you can fully enjoy and have enthusiasm and ambition about the work that you're doing. And if you're just pursuing gain with gain, that craving for the money is going to fade away, and you're not going to have that same enthusiasm and motivation that you did when it was just about the money. So this is what's called the first fold of purification, where the Buddha is teaching you to eliminate these 5 livelihoods and this particular things as well, the way you perform your livelihood. He's helping you to be able to get to a point where you can be thoroughly enjoying the work that you're doing. There's another level of purification beyond this. It's called the second fold of purification. It's in volume 12, chapter 14. So if you're interested in seeing that, you can go see that. Like maybe someone's in between jobs, they're unemployed right now, or maybe they're in a job they don't particularly care for, and they would like to get a new job. That would be a good place to look, to be able to see the full teachings of the Buddha in volume 12, chapter 14. So what the Buddha is helping you to be able to do is get to that job that you fully enjoy, you thoroughly enjoy. I don't know what you guys' experience has been like here in Thailand, but typically if you go out there with Thai people, you'll see people doing jobs and they have the biggest smile on their face, right? You'll see some lady selling mango and sticky rice on the street corner. And she woke up this morning and she went out to her mango grove, and she was just so pleased to pick her mangoes, brush them off and clean them, bring them to the market, make her sticky rice, make her coconut milk, slice up that mango with a big old smile on her face, put it on top of the sticky rice and pour that coconut milk over it, and hand it to you with a big smile on her face and collect her 40 baht. Right? And she can't imagine doing anything else in the world but serving you mango and sticky rice. She just thoroughly enjoys it, right? So what you would like to do is find your mango and sticky rice. What's your mango and sticky rice? What is it that you're going to be thoroughly enjoy doing? And even if you didn't get paid for it, you would still do it because you enjoy it that much. Right? Of course, you need to get paid for it because you need to sustain your life, but that shouldn't be the underlying reason why you're doing whatever it is that you're doing. It should be because you thoroughly enjoy it. So you need to find your mango and sticky rice, right? And that's going to really help you to be able to then have a fulfilling and satisfying life. That's what the Buddha is guiding you to be able to do. Okay, so now just to summarize the moral conduct, there's right speech, where you're learning to eliminate any harm through all your verbal conduct. And while we call it right speech, and that's what it was referred to during the lifetime of the Buddha, because that's all they had was speech, we might think about it as right communication, because we would like all of our communication to be with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. So we communicate through verbal, text, chat, post, emails. All of this should be harmless. Because if you went to a job interview and you were speaking and you knocked it out of the park and they were thinking about hiring you, well, if they look at your social media and they see that you're bitter and harsh and hostile, they're probably not going to get the job, right? Or say you were really angry and frustrated and you walk over to your computer and you're pounding on the keyboard, sending out an email. This isn't the proper time to communicate, right? Hit save on that email instead of send, right? And now, a few hours later, a few days later, come back and look at that email and see, is it wise for you to send that out, right? Because if you're communicating at an improper time, then it's not going to go well for you. So you'd like to practice all 5 factors of well-spoken speech whenever you're communicating, no matter what type of communication it is. Not just speech, but also text, chat, social media, emails, and all that stuff. Then you would like your bodily actions to be harmless, where you're not causing any harm through your bodily actions. Because anytime you cause harm, harm's going to come back to you. The Buddha gives you killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, right? He's talking about those, and we're going to go into more detail on those, but there's a whole list of other things that you could do, right? If you were sitting next to someone, poking them in the eyes, this is wrong action, right? Because you're causing harm through your bodily actions, and now harm is going to come to you because of that. So you need to be able to see beyond just the 3 that the Buddha is giving you and see that all bodily actions should be harmless. Then you would like to have a livelihood that is harmless, right? Where you're not practicing any of those livelihoods like business and weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness or poisons, but then also you eliminate scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. You'd like to eliminate all of that. That's the first fold of purification. Then you can go beyond that later. Okay, so any questions on the moral conduct? No questions? Okay. Let me see if we have any questions online. Hello, everyone. Okay, I don't see any questions there either. All right, so now we're going to go into this next part, the mental discipline, right? You wouldn't be able to actually practice the moral conduct without the mental discipline. All of this is building on top of each other, right? Because as I mentioned, in those situations where you have craving, desire, attachment, that's where you're going to find it the most challenging to practice the moral conduct, right? So you're going to need this mental discipline in place to be able to help you practice the moral conduct. So that way you can train your mind through right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So I'm going to walk you through this so you can learn it. So here's the words of the Buddha. In what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. This is called right effort. So he's talking about 4 things to apply effort to be able to do. Here, I've separated those out so you can see. He's talking about preventing unwholesome mental states that have not arisen from arising in the mind. An example of that is anything that you don't currently have in the mind right now that is unwholesome. He's saying prevent that from ever coming into the mind. Apply the effort. So a good example is that you probably have no interest in killing another human being. That's like the farthest thing from your mind right now is killing another human being. And the Buddha is saying apply the effort to prevent that sort of thing from ever coming into the mind because it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. Then he teaches you to abandon unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind, because there's certain unwholesome things that are currently in your mind right now. Every unenlightened being has unwholesome things in their mind. Some examples might be if somebody's in an existing relationship and they have a craving for sexual contact outside of that existing relationship, it's going to produce harm if they allow that to come into their mind and exist and continue to exist in their mind. So you need to apply the effort to eliminate that out of the mind if it's in your mind. Something like anger, frustration, irritation, when that's coming up in your mind, that's going to cause difficulties and struggles for you. You're going to need to apply the effort to abandon that and eliminate that out of the mind. Then there's produce unarisen wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. So there's certain wholesome mental states that are not currently in your mind right now. They're not there. You're going to need to cultivate them and bring them into the mind. You'll find out that things like generosity are really helpful for you on the path to enlightenment. This is where you're giving and sharing with the people around you, living open-handedly, not having any expectation of anything in return, sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources. So if the mind was selfish and it didn't have generosity, and that was a quality that was outside of your mind, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that generosity into your mind so you can give and share with the people around you without any expectation of anything in return. This is going to help your mind to let go. Right? Let go of those cravings, desires, attachments, right? Then there's compassion, right? If you don't have compassion in your mind, you'll find that the mind is indifferent. That's one side of compassion. You see somebody struggling in the world, having some misfortune. You're like, oh, well, so what? It's not my friend or my family. I don't care. Right? That would be indifference. Because what compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. So if your mind's lacking compassion, you will end up having indifference, where you could care less about other people's misfortune. On the other side of this compassion is worry and anxiety, where someone sees somebody struggling in the world and they're worried and have anxiety. Oh my goodness, those kids don't have food. I need to give them food, right? And now there's worry and anxiety. So the middle way here is to have compassion, where you have concern for the misfortune of others. Whether you choose to do something about it or not is a whole nother question. What the Buddha teaches you to do is cultivate this concern in the mind, this mental state where you have concern for others' misfortune. And that'll take you out of the indifference, and that'll take you out of the worry and the anxiety, and the mind can come to the middle. So you're going to need to apply the effort to bring these qualities into the mind if they're not currently in the mind. But then the fourth one is maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not allowing them to fade away, and work to increase their growth in the mind. There's certain wholesome mental states that are currently in your mind, but they're not been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. So you're going to need to apply the effort to bring them to full growth, full perfection, and full development. So for example, like loving kindness. You probably have loving kindness in your mind, where you have a genuine interest in seeing others be well. But it hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. Because in some situations, you can be very loving and kind. But in another situation, you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile, right? That's because the loving kindness isn't fully developed yet. So where you see that your loving kindness is not fully developed, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that into the mind. Another example would be sympathetic joy. What this is joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. Right? So this is the opposite of jealousy or envy, right? So maybe you have sympathetic joy in your mind, right? Somebody's like, hey, I'm thinking about going on a trip to Thailand. And you're like, oh, that's wonderful. Congratulations. I'm very pleased for you. I went to Thailand before. Oh, by the way, there's this lady on the corner that sells mango and sticky rice. It's really, really good. You'll probably enjoy it, right? Maybe you're very pleased for their success. And even though you didn't contribute to it, right? But now let's just say you're at work and there's a new position that opens up and you're applying for this new job, more money, better title, nicer office, more responsibility. And then some of your other coworkers are applying too, and they get the job instead of you. And now maybe you're jealous and envious. That's because your sympathetic joy hasn't been brought to full growth and full perfection and full development. So you're going to need to apply the effort to do this. Bring it up in the mind. Even when they're walking around the office being all conceited with their chest puffed out and they think they're so great that they got this new job, you're going to need to have sympathetic joy. Joy for their success, even though you didn't contribute to it. Right? So this is what the 4 right efforts are, is prevent unwholesome qualities from coming into the mind. Abandon unwholesome qualities that are currently in the mind. Bring into the mind wholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind, and maintain and support and encourage the wholesome qualities that are currently there. Apply the effort to do this. I just use some examples here just to help illustrate what right effort is. What's wholesome or unwholesome that's in your mind is going to be unique to you. That's where the next step comes in. The next step is going to help you to be able to practice right effort. Without this next one, you wouldn't be able to practice right effort. This is called right mindfulness. Here's what the Buddha shares. In what, monks, is right mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk resides, reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness. Okay, so he's talking about 4 things here. Body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, and mental objects as mental objects. What he's talking about is called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. But before we talk about that, let's just talk about mindfulness in general. Mindfulness in general means awareness of mind. You need to build awareness of what's going on in your mind. Your thoughts, your ideas, your feelings, the different things that are going on through your mind. You need to build awareness of that. Because oftentimes in the unenlightened state, we're not aware. We're just kind of plowing through the world, knocking down trees, burning up the forest, not realizing what's going on in our own mind. So you might just hang out with developing awareness of mind for a period of time. But then ultimately, you're going to need to develop the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Right? Now, sometimes people use this word mindful nowadays in a way that the Buddha didn't intend for it to be used. He used it in a different way. You might hear somebody in modern language say, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to the table? Right? What they're saying is, can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table? They're just substituting the word careful with mindful. Right? That's not how the Buddha is describing it. And if those people choose to use it that way, up to them, right? But if you understand what mindfulness means, that's what's going to bring your mind to understand what the Buddha is teaching you here. And that's what's important, that you understand that mindfulness means awareness of the mind. And you should be practicing this all day long, where you have awareness of what's going on in your mind. So as you develop your awareness of mind, then you would like to develop what's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. This is where you become aware of the bodily sensations that are happening prior to your mind becoming discontent. There are some bodily sensations that you may or may not even be aware of right now that are occurring prior to your mind experiencing a feeling. So something like anger, you might notice tingling in the body, rising up towards the face. You might notice tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. Right? This is an early warning system alerting you that you're about to get angry, you're about to get frustrated, right? All these feelings, whether they're pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant, there's going to be some bodily indication that the mind's about to form this conditioned feeling. It's kind of like the mind is saying, I'm about to form a conditioned feeling, I'm about to form a conditioned feeling, I'm about to form a conditioned feeling. It's this early warning system. And if you apply right effort, you say, nope, I'm not going to let you do that. Right? You're not suppressing your feeling. You're not repressing it. You're actually cutting it off before it becomes a feeling, when it's just a bodily sensation. It's kind of like if you were taking a boat from Canada to the UK and you're out in the middle of the boat, out in the middle of the water, you would like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat. Because once the water comes in, you've got a real problem to deal with now. You got to get this water out. But if you can prevent the water from coming into the boat, you can sail your way from Canada to the UK. Right? So if you notice this bodily sensation arising, indicating to you that you're about to become discontent, you can cut it off and let it go there, and you can save your mind. You can protect your mind. You don't have to experience that feeling. And if you do that enough times, eventually you will rewire your mind and it will no longer form conditioned feelings. Because when you experience contact through your eyes, ears, nose, your tongue, the body, and then there's the mind itself, you're going to see that as either agreeable or disagreeable because of your craving, your desire, your attachment. And if it's agreeable to you, you'll get pleasant feelings. But if it's disagreeable to you, you'll get painful feelings. And your mind's trying to form this feeling based on this condition. And you're trying to say, nope, not going to let you do that. So more and more, you would like to become aware of these arising of these bodily sensations and cut off and let go, cut off and let go, cut off and let go. And eventually you'll get to the point where you've done that so much, your mind won't experience those arising of conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant. And your mind will just always be happy. It'll just always be joyful because it's not forming conditioned feelings any longer. But between now and then, you aren't going to be able to catch it every single time. It'll take you a good 6 months, a year, maybe even longer to build up this ability to be able to cut off and let go every single time you notice a bodily sensation. So it will become a feeling sometimes. And when it does, if you notice it there, cut it off and let it go, right? One of the things you can do is redirect the mind, take it in another direction, right? Go for a bike ride, go for a walk, go to the kitchen, get a glass of water, something like that. Just redirect the mind so you can cut it off and let it go. Right? Because if you allow that mind to form the feeling, it's just going to keep doing that. But since your mind's not well trained at this point, it will form a feeling. So if you can cut it off and let it go there, great. But if not, it's going to go to the next one, which is it's going to affect the condition of your mind. This is more long-term. For several minutes, hours, days, maybe even a week or two, you'll experience a certain condition of mind. Have you ever been grumpy or agitated or annoyed for like a week or two? Of course you have, right? Because you didn't know this, right? Everybody has at some point because we didn't know about this, right? Well, that is coming from the cravings, desires, attachments, that you didn't cut it off as a bodily sensation. So it formed a feeling. And now that feeling, you didn't cut it off there. And now it affected the condition of the mind for several days or a week or so. And then it formed and fed what's called a mental object. What a mental object is a deeply rooted container in the mind. In this example, it's ill will, right? We weren't born with ill will. Ill will, that anger, that hatred, the bitterness and hostility, we weren't born with that. We didn't go into the nursery at the hospital hating other babies, right? But over time, our mind developed it. Because when we asked mommy, daddy for ice cream and they gave it to us, we were so happy. And we had bodily sensations, we had a feeling, it affected the condition of our mind. We felt great. But then at some point they said, no, you can't have chocolate and ice cream. We were so angry. There was bodily sensations. We didn't have the wisdom, so we didn't cut it off. It became a feeling. It started affecting the condition of our mind for a few minutes or a few hours. We were frustrated and agitated, and it formed a mental object. This is a deeply rooted container in the mind, such as ill will. All those fetters, those are all mental objects. Every single one of them are mental objects. So what the Buddha is teaching you to do is put this blockade at the bodily sensations and cutting off and letting go at the bodily sensations. All the while, you're purifying the mind and you're uprooting these pollutions out of the mind. That's what it means to purify the mind, is get rid of these mental objects out of the mind. Get rid of those 10 fetters. But you need to put this blockade at the bodily sensations. And it's going to take you time to build up the discipline of the mind to be able to do that. Okay, so this is the right mindfulness. And you wouldn't be able to practice right mindfulness without the next one. The next one is called right concentration. Here, the Buddha is explaining to you the results of putting together the entire Eightfold Path, that your mind is going to start experiencing what's called the jhanas. The jhanas are enhanced qualities of mind that you will experience on your way to the first stage of enlightenment. These are 4 phases that the mind goes through, and the Buddha is sharing this with you well. I'm not going to teach you this right now because what you need to know is how to practice right concentration. Here he's explaining the results. In his other teachings that plug into the Eightfold Path, he explains to you how to practice right concentration. But here he's explaining to you the results of having put together the Eightfold Path really well. So here's how to practice right concentration. There's developing a daily meditation practice and practicing singleness of mind. The daily meditation practice is going to be things like breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. These are targeting 2 of the 3 primary problems in your mind. You'll understand this more tomorrow morning, but breathing mindfulness meditation is the one we've been doing where you're focused on the breath, you're cutting off the thoughts. When the mind moves off the breath, you're cutting that off, letting it go, and bringing the mind back to the breath. This is training your mind to let go, let go, let go. Because the craving, desire, attachment, the mind's holding on. It doesn't want to let go. So if you're doing this 2 or 3 times a day for 30 minutes, it's training your mind to let go, let go, let go. Because that's what the mind doesn't know how to do. And this can sound like a lot. 2 to 3 for 30 minutes, like depending on what you've got going on in your life, it can sound like a lot. But I guarantee you there's probably unbeneficial things in your life. If you kind of clear those out of your life, you'd have plenty of time, right? So maybe if you're searching social media for 3 or 4 hours a day, you could bring that down for like 30 minutes or an hour. Or if you're watching YouTube video after YouTube video after YouTube video, you can bring that down a bit and you'll have time to meditate. So keep in mind, it can take 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to this type of frequency and this type of duration. You're not in a race with anyone. You're not in a competition with anyone, but ultimately you would like to build up to this 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more. And you're going to focus on these first 2. The first one, breathing mindfulness meditation, usually do that for like 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, just to get started. And then you bring in the loving kindness meditation and you learn how to do that. And then you're able to do both of these. That's going to target 2 of the 3 primary problems. Then there's 2 other meditations that you learn on a case-by-case basis. This is a meditation to eliminate sexual cravings. If you have really high sexual craving, you can bring that down with meditation because that's going to cause agitation and frustration in the mind. And there's a meditation to realize non-self to help you to do that. So these are things that you learn later in the programs that I share. So the first part of developing right concentration is to develop your meditation practice, because that's what's going to help you get your mindfulness, your awareness of mind. When your mind's moving off the breath, you're aware of that. That's your mindfulness. When you're cutting off and letting go, that's you eliminating craving, desire, attachment. And when you're focused on the breath, that's you developing concentration. So we'll talk about that more this afternoon. Then you would like to practice singleness of mind. Singleness of mind is where you're doing just one thing at a time in your day-to-day life. You might have actually been taught to multitask, right? Your mind actually can't multitask. It's not possible. This didn't become a thing until like the 1960s. When computers came out, computer chips can multitask. They can do multiple things at a time. So human beings thought, why don't we do that? Why don't we try to do that? Your mind actually can't. What you're doing is you're doing one thing for 3 to 5 seconds, and then you're rapidly cycling to another thing for 5 seconds, 8 seconds, 10 seconds. Then you're rapidly cycling over here to another thing. So if you're talking on the phone to your mom, watching TV and eating a sandwich, you're not actually doing all 3 of those things at one time. You're talking to your mom for a few seconds, you're watching TV for a few seconds, you're eating your sandwich for a few seconds. That's why when you get off the phone, you can't even remember what you talked about because you don't have concentration. You don't have focus. So this conversation that could have been 15 minutes ended up being 45 minutes or an hour. Because the mind's lack of wisdom thinks that, hey, I'm accomplishing so many more things. If I do all 3 of these things, I'm accomplishing so much more. No, you're not, because that conversation could have only been 15 minutes. And now when you get off the phone, you've got to call your mom back up and be like, Mom, I know I agreed to do something for you. What was that again? I forgot. What was it? Right? You have to get reminded about this. Or maybe you said some things that were unwise, and now you got to call back and apologize. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to say that. I really wasn't thinking about what I was saying. Right? Because how are you going to bring forth your full wisdom on something like right speech if you're not focused and concentrated? You're going to need to be focused on that conversation, right? So if you're running around like this, trying to do multiple things at one time, you're not actually doing multiple things at one time. It's part of the mind's lack of wisdom. And if you've ever been to a horse racetrack, horses will race around a racetrack. And then when they go to the barn, they can't calm down. They're like all hyped up. Right? The human beings the same way. If you go to work each day and you're running around like this, When it's the end of your day, you'll find it very challenging to relax. You'll have stress and anxiety in the mind. But if you just do one thing at a time, you'll do it really well. You won't make any mistakes, and then you move off to the next thing. So there's nothing for you to clean up, right? So the Buddha teaches you to just do one thing at a time. So, for example, let's just say you're washing dishes and you see your mind's wandering. Cut that off and bring it back. Because if you allow that to happen, you might get cut, right? And now you got to go to the hospital and get that taken care of. Or say you're in a business meeting and your mind's wandering, thinking about this trip to Thailand you're going to take in 6 months, right? That's not going to help you in the business meeting. Cut that off and let it go and come back to whatever it is that you're talking about in the business meeting, right? You like to just stay focused and concentrated, right? So what this is doing is, the way you might think about it is, if you practice singleness of mind each day, your mind's going to start getting more and more focused and more concentrated, where it'll just stay there all the time. But initially, it's kind of like a piece of wood. If you had a steel rod, that when you start grinding that steel rod back and forth over the wood, initially it's going to bounce around a lot because it doesn't have a groove yet. But if you grind that steel rod back and forth enough, eventually you're going to get a deeper and deeper groove, right? And then when it pops out, you're going to know it. And you're going to be like, oh, let me bring it back, right? But if you grind this steel rod back and forth enough, eventually you're going to get a deeper and deeper groove, and it won't pop out anymore. So by the time you're practicing right concentration, you'll always be focused. You'll always be concentrated. Your mind won't wander on you. But initially, you're going to have to bring it back until you get that groove going really well. Okay, so this is what right concentration is practicing this breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness, having a daily practice to develop the mind, and then practicing singleness of mind in day-to-day life. And I'd like to just back up for 1 second for the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And I'd like to share with you how you practice this in a day-to-day life. Okay, so I talked about cutting off at the bodily sensations. I talked about cutting off at the feelings, cutting off at the condition of the mind, cutting off and not allowing the mind to form these mental objects, right? So the way that this looks in day-to-day life is, let's just say you're watching the news. You're sitting on the sofa and you're watching the news, and you're noticing some tingling in the body starting to come up based on something you're seeing on the news. Well, don't just sit there and let the mind dwell in that, right? Cut that off. Apply right effort. Go for a walk. Go for a bike ride. Go get something from the kitchen, like a glass of water. Go wash your hands in the bathroom or something. Don't allow your mind to stay wired that way. So you'd like to cut it off, redirect the mind and take it somewhere else. That's applying right effort to not allow the mind to form the conditioned feeling. Because if you keep allowing the mind to stay wired that way, it's going to keep doing that over and over and over and over again. So you're trying to break that up and transform it. Okay? So just to kind of summarize what I've been talking about here with the mental discipline is, there's right effort, which is taking the initiative to eliminate the unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate wholesome qualities in the mind. The way I explained this to my son when I taught it to him when he was 6 years old is, I said, kick out the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome, right? That's what you're doing, right? Then there's right mindfulness, where you have awareness of mind. And then, more specifically, the 4 foundations of mindfulness: being aware of that early warning system, the bodily sensations, being aware of the feelings, the condition of the mind, and then the mental objects. And this is developed over time, right? You're not going to be able to just snap your fingers and do that. Then there's right concentration, where you're practicing meditation, and then you're developing singleness of mind, until you start experiencing what's called the jhanas, right? The jhanas is like the light bulb flickering. You're going to start getting these qualities of enlightenment starting to shine through. There's these enhanced qualities of mind that you start experiencing. And this is telling you that you're putting together the Eightfold Path really well. And now you start pivoting and you start focusing on the 10 fetters more closely. Okay? So this is the mental discipline. All of these together is the Eightfold Path. And if you dial this in closer and closer, you'll be able to see the improvement to the condition of your mind in your life. You're going to need to commit this to memory. Oftentimes people need to learn this multiple times, right? You're studying in the book, you're coming to classes, maybe 2, 3, 4 classes. Maybe you're watching the videos, listening to the podcast. You're going to need to commit this to your memory. Where in the lifetime of the Buddha, they just chanted it, and that's how they actually remembered it. Where today you need to sit and study. One of the things that I used to do, like when I was practicing right speech, for example, is I would look at the 5 factors of well-spoken speech in the morning after my meditation. I would look at the 5 factors, and then I would go out in the morning and have all my meetings and have all my conversations. And then at lunchtime, I would look at them again, and I would see what did I do well and what I didn't do well. And I'd be like, I keep interrupting people. I need to stop doing that. Wow, I'm not speaking at the proper time, right? So I would like really hone in on that. So now in the afternoon, I would just be so diligent not to interrupt anybody, even leaving a really nice pause in between when I was talking with people and they were talking. So you're going to need to do this where you're going to need to bring this up into your life. And that's where like this poster really works out. I have this chopped up into little images on my phone. If you guys would like this, I can send it to you, or you can download this poster from our website. We have them here as well, where you can like kind of get a little refresher each morning, each afternoon, each evening, and then more and more you'll be able to see exactly what you need to practice, and you're honing in on it little by little. Sometimes students even like to sit down with me, schedule some personal guidance where they almost teach me the Eightfold Path. They will walk through it verbally and from their memory and make sure that they understand it. So if you guys would ever like to do that kind of thing, you can do that as well. Okay, so any questions on the Eightfold Path? You guys don't have any questions? Okay. I'm sorry, I can't read Chinese. I see somebody writing Chinese there. Sorry, I can't read that. Okay, so I don't see any questions anywhere. So it's basically about 12 o'clock. Usually what I do is I take a nice hour-and-a-half lunch break here, come back at 1:30, and I teach you guys breathing mindfulness meditation. I'm going to teach you the ins and outs of meditation, and then we'll actually do a session together. So if you guys would like to take a lunch break, go for it. I'm going to get started again at 1:30, and if you're here, great, I'll teach you. If not, then I'll see you another time. But whatever you do, have a very wonderful lunch, and if I'm not going to see you again, have a wonderful rest of your day, okay? Sawadee Kap. Sawadee Kap.